Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live with Maria. Let's wait for everyone to join. It's pretty much the first time I'm hosting someone after a long time. It's been a long while since I last hosted anyone on Instagram. Let's give it some time so everybody joins. And how was your day, everyone? How did you spend the whole day? Did you work? Were you at home? Hi. All right, I guess. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Fatima. Hello, Rap God 2014. Yeah, I guess our guest is here today. Okay, let's go for it. All right, we're going to listen to Maria share her views on fluency and accuracy. And hi, Anila.
I'm just trying to get a filter on. I don't want to show my real face. Let's see. That's still my real face. All right, that's better. What's up, Ali? How are you? Long time no see.
Yeah,
No speak, no see.
it's been a while. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Fantastic.
So, how was your
Okay.
day, and how are you? And etc.
How's
etc.
your life?
Yeah,
I wanted to come 5 minutes late and then make a joke. We have a live. I'm coming. The same as you did with our bad students video. That was great. And I can't
yeah.
believe that was 2 years ago. How time flies, doesn't it? It's
It's been a
scary.
it's been a long time. Maria, would you like to tell everyone who may not know you who you are, what you do for a living?
What I do for a living? That's a very private question.
Now, what's
That's
your
a joke.
job? What do you do for a living? I mean that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a secret. It's a secret. Yeah. What I do for a living? No one can know. So yeah, I guess some of my followers are joining as well because it shows up on my profile too. But for your followers, I'm Maria. Hello everyone, welcome. I'm a teacher of English as a foreign language. Whether I do that for a living or not, but I do it. Whether it gives me a living
Nice,
or not, that's a
nice.
different question. But I've been a teacher for about 6.5 years. I kind of started it as an experiment, but I've always loved languages and I fell in love with teaching and I continue to this day. So teacher Ali invited me tonight to talk to you all about fluency and accuracy.
Do
And
you
I
know
guess the
why I
question back
did
of
that?
him. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
you
was my
know,
question. Why? Why?
yeah.
Why?
Because I noticed you've been I saw that you had a video on YouTube about this, and apparently you were sort of pissed off about the fact that some teachers on Instagram are promoting teaching English and learning English without the need for grammar, the need for accuracy. So I kind of felt like you had something to share. You wanted to share that publicly. Yeah,
Get it off my chest.
exactly. And
Yes.
I was like, wow, where else is better than my page to let Maria speak it up and we could exchange ideas. So what is it?
That'll be
How did it
amazing.
start? Where did it happen? How did it happen? When did it happen? Would you like to share that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess you invited me for the accuracy thing because you are, I wanted to start by saying I admire you so much because you are pushing for accuracy. You are calling out teachers who are not focused on the correctness of things. And I get, we'll address that maybe in a second, that we all make mistakes when we speak. That's normal. But if you make a 10, 20-second video, surely you can put an effort in to double check things
There you
before you
go.
post them, or even after correct it, or say, oh, sorry, guys, oops, made a mistake. Here is a correction, sort of thing. We have a responsibility as teachers to admit when we make mistakes and to let learners know what is the correct way to say something, right? So I completely get that. And I admire you for pushing that because it doesn't always make you popular, does it?
Oh, I
With
get
a
a
lot
lot
of
of hate
people.
messages. Yeah. Like this morning, I got this long message from this teacher in Australia who has 70,000 followers telling me that
Yeah.
everybody makes mistake. And I was like, did you even bother to read and understand the idea behind my page? I didn't say that nobody can make mistakes. I said a teacher who
Yeah.
has 140,000 followers is supposed to double check at least for a minute before posting a video. That's the whole idea. But she wouldn't listen.
Yes.
But yeah, I
So
got a lot
Masuma
of
saying, what are you talking about? So that was the iron thing, right? So very
yeah.
basic word, I would say. It's not like it's a complex grammar point or some complex thing.
I mean, all they have to do is
Um,
look it up in the dictionary and check the pronunciation. That's all. But
before they teach it.
they don't even bother to do that. And
Yeah, and even also, even
yeah,
yeah, sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Tell me about what you saw. What
So
really?
So actually, I deleted that video because honestly, I realized I was huffing and puffing down the microphone. I was so angry. I was
Why
like, I
did you
have to
get?
record this when I calm down. Yeah.
Why did you get angry? What was the reason? What video was that? Who got you so
So
pissed
it
off?
wasn't the teacher. I admire this teacher. I think this teacher is great and fantastic, and I'm sure they do the right thing in their lesson. But I feel like there is this pressure and there's a marketing trick to say, "Oh, guys, speak without thinking. It will be great. Just relax and enjoy, and don't really make that much effort, and everything will be fantastic." And I think it's a real marketing trick because people want to hear easy. They want to feel something will come easy to them because we are, as human beings, always looking for the easy stuff or in the easy way out or, the shortcut. We are looking for that. And if someone
Yeah.
promises us that, we're like, oh, yes, this is it, this is it. I agree with you. So it just annoyed me that that was that. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but it feels like it's everywhere, all over Instagram now, from teachers that I do respect, but I don't agree with that message. And what really got me was the message that accuracy will come naturally. So if you want, like, maybe we could dive into that. And I mean, I'd love to hear what the followers, what the learners think. Do you think, guys, accuracy comes naturally when you just focus on fluency? Do you think accuracy comes? And maybe, shall we discuss a little bit more, perhaps, Ali, what is accuracy and fluency? Maybe
What is
people don't know what it is.
accuracy? Let me make it very simple for the followers. Do you think that if you start learning English and then you say, I am understanding you, and then you pass the test and you are pre-intermediate, and then again you say, I am understanding you, and then once you are intermediate, do you think that suddenly you will realize that, oh my God, this is actually wrong? No, but you have to learn it from the very beginning. If you are not familiar with the right application of each tense, present simple, past simple, present continuous, from the very beginning with the right tutor, you will not be able to fix that once you are already intermediate or upper intermediate. This is my understanding. Back to you.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. I mean, you can try to fix it logically in your head. You understand that it's wrong, but because you've repeated like 100 times, we are a product of repetition, right? The more we
Totally.
repeat something, the more it becomes ingrained and part of us. And if you
Totally.
keep on repeating the same mistake without having corrected it, it's so hard to get rid of it. And I know from experience of people that I know who have been repeating the same mistake many years and, again and again, living in English environments. That's back to the immersion thing because you think immersion and it will give you, it gives you fluency and accuracy, it rubs off on you. Accuracy does not rub off on you. It doesn't. You have to make that effort. You have
There is
to
there is a
put in the
lot of
work.
there is a lot of foreigners living in English speaking countries for years, and I'm saying 10, 20 years, still making the same mistakes over and over again, although they are in an English speaking country long enough to be able to pick the language really well. Why? Because at the time when they were supposed to care about accuracy, they ignored it and they thought that
Mm.
accuracy would come along. Well, it didn't. Bad news.
That's what makes me angry, that students are misled to believe that accuracy will come naturally because it will not. So as long, I understand that there are some students out there who do not care about accuracy that much. They don't need it. They are happy to speak, communicate, making mistakes, and it's okay for them. But as long as they have that awareness and they know and they can make that choice, I don't care about accuracy. I'll speak how I speak. People understand me. It's fine. But if you want to speak correct English, if you want to acquire true fluency, and that kind of brings me to you have to know that you have to put in the work with accuracy, and accuracy is about again, it's what I hated is the trying to separate accuracy and fluency. I mean, how they're not nemesis. They're not enemies. They're not
Yeah, Maria,
opposing
you are
things,
absolutely
are
right.
they?
You are right in thinking that this is a marketing strategy. You are also right in thinking that these pages, they want to attract as many people as they can to their page and to the content. However, I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the client. I have clients here in Italy, Italians who are lawyers, accountants, and they say, "Hey, Ali, I don't need accuracy. I just want to write a couple of business emails on a daily basis. I don't care about the rest because I'm way too busy." Well, I understand that. But fooling people, tricking people into buying packages just because you are lying to them and telling them that, hey guys, you can actually speak English in 20 days. You don't need accuracy. It will come along. Just wait for that. That's terrible. I mean, how can you possibly sleep well at night when you lie to a large group of people? This is the whole idea behind my page, and I'm not going to stop even a second promoting the idea that we have to raise awareness, because I really truly wonder how those pages can actually, the owners can sleep well at night when they know that they are lying to their clients.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they sleep pretty well, and they're probably richer than you and me.
Maria, you
They
want to
sleep in a
address
better
this?
bed as well.
You want to address this comment? I pinned the comment down there.
Yeah. So someone else said previously that slip of the tongue error. Yeah, that's
Oh,
that's that's fine. We're not condoning that. I don't know. I never hear Alan making mistakes. I do make mistakes when I speak from time to time, and those are slip of the tongues, and I do try to correct them after and address them. But we're talking about fundamental errors where when I hear a teacher, I recently tuned into a teacher, very famous teacher. Not gonna say the name. Not gonna say he or she, but they were speaking for a long time and they made the same mistake 3 or 4 times. So I was like, this is not slip of tongue. They
no.
really don't know this.
And this is not accent. Like the teacher who messaged me yesterday, this is an accent. We have to respect different accents. And I was like, Jesus Christ, somebody saying Iren is an accent? No, it's a mispronunciation. So this is not an accent. This is not a slip of tongue. This is laziness. They don't want to double check their content.
I think there is that. Is there no accent that says iron, like with a R?
There is impossible, Maria. How could you possibly say that?
Not a single
Like
one. No,
German
but I
people.
always think that maybe in some rural area in somewhere there might be someone who might have implemented that.
No, I mean, no, we know that. Come on, I studied phonology at university. I know about the phonemes. It's impossible to change the way something is pronounced just because you
But people are
belong to a
changing it,
certain
right?
tribe.
What do you think about actually when inaccuracies become accepted part of speaking? Because that happens too. People keep
Yeah,
making mistakes, and then people go, okay, whatever, let's just give it, give up on the original rule and just accept it as the new law. What
that
do you think
happens
of
very
that? Does it
often.
bother you? Or?
Yeah, my
Yeah, it
colleagues,
does, doesn't it?
I have British colleagues here who've been here like for 20, 30 years, and they speak
Yeah.
their first language with a lot of mistakes. But because they're doing it and because they've heard it a lot from Italians, it's become normalized. So it's fine. I mean,
Oh,
after a couple of times of hearing that somebody says, I don't have the possibility to do this, meaning that I can't do this, you're going to be saying the same thing after a while. You're going to be like, I don't have the possibility to do this. So it becomes normalized. Or the one that is highlighted in the comments, can you see the pinned comment? It says there is a
mm,
lot of, this is a very common mistake. It's not a mistake anymore. In writing, yeah, but in speaking, no. But uh, grammatically, this is wrong. What do you think?
yeah. But the thing is, I'm not a Nazi on accuracy. Actually, I'm not. I'm more of an accuracy that helps fluency. So I'm all pro when, if you use the wrong tense. So I had a new student this week, and then I was just explaining that she needs to add me as a contact for the future lessons. And she says to me, I add you. And I'm like, I can't see it. So I couldn't understand if she means she's in the process of adding me now, she has added me, or she will add me, right?
There you go.
So
There you
that
go.
that accuracy impacts fluency because I wasn't sure what it is that she was trying to say to me, right? So the
Perfect example.
communication kind of.
Perfect
Uh,
example. Yeah.
but
Um,
if you say preposition, to be afraid of or to be afraid, I don't know, with someone, right? It's not going to stop me from understanding what you're trying to say. So that's accuracy. Of course, I will correct it with my students because if they care about speaking correctly, and most of them do, because they want to come across, more fluent like, or they might want to take an exam in the future. So I will correct that, but that's not a mistake that is essential. But do you think? I mean, I was thinking about this earlier, and how can we actually separate and go? Okay, here's a range of mistakes which are not essential for fluency, and here's a range of mistakes which are. Can we really do that? Can learners really do that? What do you think? I
I
mean,
don't think
I can't imagine
I
that
don't.
happening.
No, if somebody is paying me as a client and telling me that they want to be accurate, I wouldn't categorize the level of accuracy based on what's the priority and what's not, what's important and what's not. I would believe in all of them, from the very beginning. We all have to focus on all kinds, all types of accuracy. No, I agree with you with when you said, of course, when we're using tenses, we have to be really careful because tenses can actually block communication, and prepositions probably are not that much of a barrier compared to tenses, but not when I have a client. No, not when I have a client. When
Absolutely.
somebody's paying me, I would have to do my job right because I want to sleep well at night. I want to sleep well. For the money I get, I want to do whatever I can within my means to deliver a world-class lesson. What about you?
Absolutely. I agree with you. But I think, I just want to address another thing as to why
Hmm.
a lot of teachers are advocating fluency prioritized over accuracy. So I'd like to see, I came up with this metaphor for accuracy and fluency. Fluency is pushing your foot on the gas pedal in the car, and accuracy is braking. Because when you think about accuracy, you have to kind of slow down and think about it a bit. When you're just speaking and going for it, you're driving fast. I don't know if that makes sense, this metaphor to you or to the followers, but it
I
does
didn't
to
quite
me.
I, I
So,
didn't I didn't quite catch what you said. Could you just repeat? I'm sorry.
sure, 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 no
I
worries.
didn't hear you
Can you
well.
hear me well? Is
Yeah,
everything
I can hear
okay
you
with
now. Yeah,
connection
yeah.
and everything? Okay, fantastic. So I'm just saying that I tried to think of a metaphor for accuracy and fluency, and the one I came up with was like driving a car. You have a gas pedal and a brake pedal, and you need both, right? So you need to brake sometimes and slow down for accuracy to think about it, to react,
Exactly.
and then you need to just go. If you're only braking, you're not going anywhere. So you need to press the gas pedal as well, right? To keep going. And if it, the other thing is, I'm just thinking that teachers think that when they correct students, and I've heard it in many videos, so they invite their students to speaking clubs and lessons, and they go, it's not a place, you're not going to be afraid of speaking. I will not be correcting you all the time. I will not be, they see it as, they think students are afraid of being corrected,
True.
that they will somehow be, just pushed into the corner and just completely blocked from. Exactly, it's like hitting someone on the head with a stick every time they speak. I think that's probably the thing they're thinking about. You say something wrong, and do you feel that? Do you feel that with the students when you correct them? How do they react? Like, do they
I I
feel positive or negative about it?
I am extremely diplomatic when that happens. When I
I'm
need
sure
to
you are.
correct my student, I am extremely diplomatic because most of my students are lawyers. As I said, they are already super sophisticated individuals in the society. You know, when they are very much of an intellectual in society, you have to be very careful when you want to correct them. So I try to be as diplomatic as possible, and I try to first create the atmosphere of friendliness so that they feel that we are a team, and I'm just trying to help. I'm not a teacher, I'm not dominating, and I have no intention of such thing whatsoever. Once that's created, I mean, if I can manage to do that, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. But when it works, which is, I would have to be proud oftentimes, they actually feel comfortable enough to accept their mistake and feel and realize that this is actually for their own good. This is why they are paying me to be there, and they start appreciating. So for me, yeah, for me that's quite the opposite story. And most of my students, but it's tough, especially when I have teenagers in my class. With teenagers, when I correct them, I would really, really, really have to make sure that they're not offended, disrespected, or they do not lose their self-esteem. Did that answer your question, or
Yeah, sure, that's great. And I think
how about yourself?
it's a wonderful thing to build trust. I've never had I usually get students who by the end of the first talk, oh my God, thank you so much for correcting me. I really appreciate it. Because my previous teacher, academy, or whatever, didn't give me corrections or feedback. And I go, wow.
Ah, that's big. Wow. Wow.
I have started because of all these teachers going, oh my God, these students will get scared. Be careful, don't scare them with accuracy and all of that. So I was like, do you mind me correct? Do you feel okay? And I explained that I'm doing it for improving your speaking, your fluency, because accuracy does not, again, contradict fluency. It helps it. You cannot be truly fluent without accuracy. I mean, it's just impossible. I can't
Which
see
is
that happening.
which is why, Maria, every time I want to have a lesson with someone, I always interview them for at least 5 to 10 minutes to realize that they are absolutely sure why they are taking a course with me and why they are willing to pay this much money to be with me for a couple of hours, for 10, 12 hours in a course. And
So,
once I feel like they're not really 100% convinced that they are paying this money to be corrected and to get constant feedback, I will not go any further with them because I realize that I'm going to break their hearts. I have a lot of respect for individuals who
sure.
want to pay money to become a client. Yeah, just like
Yeah, you
yourself,
do
just like
because you
all of
want to
us
help
teachers.
them,
Yeah,
not to make them
exactly.
feel bad. Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah. I mean, I guess there are kind of students out there who are terrified of speaking, and I had students like that, and I wouldn't correct them from the start. I would sort of get them speaking a little bit more, and I think it's also it depends on the student. Right, and then once they get comfortable, I might give them a few suggestions on vocabulary and grammar gently. Absolutely. So you do have to adapt to the student and the situation for sure. And it depends on the day. The same student one day might be super happy to go into details of accuracy of grammar, of the details of things. And the other day they just might want to pour their heart out
Sure.
in English. And you have to feel that as a teacher, right?
It's the mood, it's the mood of the student as well.
It is.
If they're in the
It is,
mood
and like
for
you
it.
can feel their block. You're trying to get through grammar or some sort of complex point, and they just you feel their block. So you just go, okay, let's chat about this, or let's chat about that, or you try to
Check
sort
out
of get them to open up and unblock. Yeah.
check out this comment. It says Amin is saying they pay for the service. Well, service in an English class is the teacher's constructive feedback. Exactly. And Amin is also
Absolutely.
saying, I need to be able to sleep well at night. Of course, we have to be, our conscience
No,
must
I
be
think he
clear
quoted
when we're
you.
sleeping.
He liked it.
Yeah,
He liked it.
exactly.
He quoted you. I'm struggling to see the comments. I'm just conscious I might tap away and everything might go. So feel free to read them out. But yeah, thank you guys for commenting. It was
Great.
nice to hear and see participation. So
Maria, another question that I have in mind. So you recorded that podcast, right?
yeah,
The night that you saw the video, like immediately, or you thought about it and then you recorded the podcast?
immediately it was like a 10 minutes
You were so
interval.
pissed off, right?
I'm a very passionate and fiery person. If I get fired up, you can't stop me. I'm like a hurricane. I'm going. I'm not
Understandable.
going to dissipate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Understandable.
But I did rush into it a little bit, so I do want to make it a bit more constructive and address both sides of the story because I think it's good to understand where the other teachers are coming from as well and what they're trying to say, and perhaps they might, maybe they didn't mean exactly, or maybe they didn't put it in the right words exactly, and perhaps their classes are not what they put on Instagram. That's a possibility as well. But to say that accuracy will
Which I
come
highly
naturally,
doubt. Which I highly doubt.
I'm
However,
trying to be positive here.
yeah, yeah. Let's look on the bright side. Yeah, let's see.
Let's look at the bright side.
Benefit of the
Absolutely,
doubt.
absolutely.
You know what they say.
I
But
just think, as long as students know that nothing will come naturally, you will not learn complex grammar points by repeating sentences that you hear in films. So that's the other thing, right? People think watching films naturally will suddenly make them learn things.
I'm so against it too. I'm so against it because watching movies can actually damage your English if you do not do it the right way. I have students who are studying. They are in my
Mm.
preparation course for Cambridge exams. They watch a lot of movies, a lot of Netflix. They're teenagers, and you know what? Now they know how to say everything, which is sort of slang in English. But when it comes to writing an essay or doing the speaking test, they're terrible and they are resisting. They're like, no, we don't need that stuff because I saw it in the movie and I think this is important. What do you think about that, watching movies without a teacher's supervision?
Well, it depends what your goal is. If your goal is to live in a country and speak like a teenager and you don't really care about the sort of academic language, but I suppose, I'm not going to say majority, but I suppose a vast number of the students might want to continue into higher education and get good jobs possibly. And to
Right.
do that, you're doing it a good command of English, correct English, not slang English. So I don't advocate against watching films, and I think once you reach a certain level, you are able to discern between the sort of the everyday slang and colloquial English and maybe more academic formal English that you need perhaps to pass an exam or to get a job. Um, but yeah, I never, I don't think you can really enjoy a film until you at least maybe hyper intermediate, intermediate, and it depends on the film as well.
True.
I never, I can't imagine a student enjoying anything at that level anyway.
No, I always tell my students if I used to recommend Suits, the movie for lawyers, this show for lawyers.
Mm,
I
love it.
love that show.
I've seen it all. I've binged through it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mike. And I remember telling them, like, hey guys, if you want to practice your legal English, you have to watch this show. You cannot go ahead and watch Simpsons and expect to have a perfect legal English. You're supposed to pick the show. And picking the right show is the teacher's responsibility, not you. That's why you're paying for the service again. So follow the
Absolutely.
lead of the teacher. Otherwise you're gonna
Yeah,
get lost.
I mean, I always welcome my students' input because they might come up with ideas I haven't thought of, and that's great. But yeah, also just watching one type of series. How can you improve your English in a holistic way and learn different kinds of vocabulary and on different topics when you're watching the same show again and again?
No, I didn't catch
Um,
that. I was lost with the comment. What did you say again? So sorry.
okay. Do you want to address some of the comments or
No, no, no. I want to
I
answer
can
the
come
part
back
you
to my point?
rephrased. What did you say was your last phrase?
So I'm saying that it's strange when students watch the same series and they expect some sort of improvement in their overall English, and I go, well, it's just the same actors using similar type of language
Uh,
in the same or similar context. It doesn't give you a variety. It doesn't expose you to the variety. And as you said, it's not legal English or talking about the environment or talking about other topics that are not covered in this series
that's a
necessarily.
valid point. That's a valid point. I would have to add on top of that, when we as non-native speakers, we watch a TV show a couple of times, it can actually help us learn like really well the common phrases, chunks, and expressions in the TV show. You
Sure.
did not learn English like me. You grew up in an English speaking country, so you do not
Well, yes and no.
probably.
It was a bit of both for me. It
But
was
you
immersion.
didn't learn it from movies. You didn't learn it in a class. You learned it in the environment, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
that's a different
That's true.
story. We are struggling. When I learned the expression, like I remember when I learned the phrasal verb screw up, it took me at least 2 months to be able to use it because I
Oh
never
wow.
learned it in context at a school. I never went to school there, so I didn't have an idea of like how it actually works. So that's why I
How can you
am I
screw up?
yeah,
In what
how
way
can
can
you
you
screw?
screw up?
Yeah, that's why it took me a while to actually learn expressions, and for me, it actually worked. I repeatedly watched
Right.
certain TV shows, but that was back in the day when I was learning the language at the very beginning, and probably I was doing the right thing. I don't know, but
But
it
how did
worked
you
for
do
me.
it? I mean, did you just sit back, kick back with a
Oh no,
bowl
no,
of
no, no, no,
popcorn
no, no! Definitely taking notes. Definitely
and a glass of wine
copying.
or something? No.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. No, no. You know what I mean. You have to consciously concentrate, take notes, and constantly repeat and repeat. Otherwise, you won't be able to use it.
Absolutely. No, no, you won't. Yeah. You have to take a notepad, pause it, rewind it, watch it again. You know, you have to do that hard work, which is why it's probably easier to do it with like shorter videos on YouTube or something because it's easier to they're more manageable than a whole series, for example.
Let me give you an example, Maria. Let me give you an example. Do you know what people do in certain countries, especially in the Middle East? They get a course book, they go through the book,
Mm.
and they see, okay, there is an expression. You can say that again. And then they go over everywhere and they use the expression. You can say that again. You can say that again. And then people feel like, oh my God, of course, you learned it from a book, but you're not supposed to say it like all the time. You have to make sure where to say it, how to say it, which social class it belongs to. So that's what I always tell my students, like, when you watch a TV show, first make sure that you actually follow what social class it belongs to. And then put it in your head, digest it really well, and then make sure that you can actually use it. Because who in a suit and tie would go out and say, yo, what's popping? My students do that, they're like, and
Right?
I'm like, Jesus Christ. And they're like, no, teacher, it was in a dictionary and it's in a book and I can say what's popping. It's very American. And I'm
Yeah.
like, then you are very much likely to lose your job if you say that. You are very much likely to lose your job. What do you
Exactly.
think
Well, you're not
about
gonna
that?
get the job in the first place if you speak that way, probably. You have to have it before you lose it. So does does that fall into the fluency or the accuracy category for you? Figuring out the context for the new words. That's a
For me
tricky one, I
personally,
think.
for me, it's definitely accuracy. I believe that context is part of accuracy. I believe that the fact that I can actually use the phrase, for example, what's popping in the right context, it takes me 2 months, I'm sure, to actually be able to use it because I did not grow up in an English speaking country. That's why we
I
all
feel
have
this
to.
to you for speaking like a native. That's another thing. I admire so much. I admire you so much for
I
that.
appreciate that, but I'm telling you, because many of my learners are like, Ali, I have a book. Can I memorize the book and learn English? And then they come back to me and say, you can say that
Do
again.
people
It
still
costs
ask
alarm
that?
on a leg. They do this, they do that. I'm like so pissed off. This is not real English. You have to understand where it belongs.
Yeah,
The class, the
yeah,
social
yeah, yeah.
class.
Where you can use it, where it's appropriate to use it.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you. Can you say
Yeah.
what's cracking to your boss? No.
I would say if there is, it doesn't always work, but if you learn the phrase or if you like some sort of idiom or something, just put it in Google and maybe in the news or maybe in some sort of articles or whatever. See what comes up. See in what context you actually hear that word or see that word. It works it does work sometimes as well. It does help in that sense. But yeah. So I've opened it up on my computer, the Instagram Live, so I actually see the comments because I can't see them on my phone. So I'm sorry if I'm like
Hang
doing
on,
this.
Maria. We have comments we have to address.
Yes, let's do it.
Um,
So that was the shadowing question earlier that
yeah,
you pinned and
you want to
unpinned,
address that?
right?
Yeah. And then we address someone
Uh,
who agrees to. I love the people who disagree with what I say because that's a
yeah.
beautiful thing.
Did we get some people disagreeing? Oh, interesting. What did they say? I'm curious. What was their disagreement?
No, it's down here. It says, I think learners should live abroad to acquire a level or competent to think better in other culture. Of course, the ideal way, I mean, the ultimate trick is to be able to live in London to learn a language after a while, ideally with a
Well,
teacher, but
London's not
nobody
going
can
to help
afford
because you
that.
have such a variety of cultures and languages. London's probably a bad place to learn English.
No, but I don't mean that. I mean that nobody can afford that. When we talk about learning foreign language, we're talking about spending money, you know?
It's
So
true.
this is
It's true.
not
But
about
again, that's hoping that it rubs off on you. You just living in a country, the language does not rub off on you. The amount of, say, Russian immigrants who have lived in the UK for many years, and they still, their level hasn't moved that much.
yeah.
There is a girl who moved to the UK maybe a few years later than me, and she came to me for a lesson. And I mean, she's younger than me, but she came to me for a lesson. Her level was pre-intermediate, and she went to school in England. And I'm like, how did you manage that? She goes, yeah, I only had Russian speaking friends. It just blew my
I'm spe
mind. How is
I'm
that
speechless.
possible?
I'm
But
speechless.
it happens all the time. So I
Yeah.
think, yes, if you combine studying, really, really making an effort, watching things, analyzing, talking to people, then immersion can be a booster to that. But immersion on its own is not going to help you to develop
Definitely
fluency
not.
and accuracy.
You still need
Maybe
to teach your.
fluency to an extent. Fluency to an extent as you hear things and you communicate, people understand you, you get by. Yes, but to a certain level, to a certain level of communication.
Um, look at what Buster is saying. It says what's you say what's cracking to your boss, and they will show you the crack of the door. Exactly. And some teachers teach this stuff. Buster, you know which teachers I'm probably talking about. There are many teachers who
Oh,
actually teach this stuff, and they say this is real English, and I get so mad. This is not. Oh my God! Please teach people where and when, how to say things. That's all. End of story. Period.
yeah. And the synonyms as well. People love to open the thesaurus and diversify the language with thesaurus, right?
I am
It's like
abandoning you
Joey
to
from
have lunch.
Friends.
See you tomorrow. They actually say, I'm
What did you
abandoning
say?
you to have lunch. And because they saw a synonym for leave is abandon. So they paraphrase it like that. I'm abandoning you. See you tomorrow. I will encounter you tomorrow.
It was like Joey in Friends. I don't know if you remember that episode where he was writing a letter of recommendation for Monica and Chandler to adopt. And did you see
I
that?
remember
Do you
that
remember
episode.
that?
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. So he took out, so he had a very basic level of English and they were afraid. So he decided to be more sophisticated and took out thesaurus and replaced all the basic words with sophisticated words, and it made no sense at all.
Exactly. Look
So
at this
don't be that
comment,
guy.
Maria. Look at this comment. A lot of people in non-English speaking countries, they think that they have to say thanks a bunch instead of thank you, and they sound more native. What do you think? You as a native English speaker, what do you think? How you comment?
It doesn't
I don't know
matter. You
what
can
to
say
say.
whatever you want.
They say
Yeah,
thank
I
you
like
bunch.
some teachers have started busting now on Instagram as well that those videos don't say this, you sound basic or you sound like a non-native. Say this instead, and then some sort of sophisticated word. You can say both things. It's not a problem.
I tell you
That's
what.
something not to stress about. That's accurate. That accuracy is not worth stressing over. Okay.
I tell you what, Maria, every time I hang out with my colleagues, we have like a dinner party or a meeting, that's when I see the simplest English ever. And I mean the simplest, because
Yeah.
everybody out there, native English speakers, speak easily and a very simple English. They don't use those weird words in dictionaries. They don't say you can say that again, or I don't know, like it costs an arm and like
It's some
they
sort of
use simple
idiomatic
phrases.
expression. Yeah.
Yeah, they think that all native speakers are talking like this. I will let the cat out of the bag. I am pulling your leg. And what else? Excuse my French.
What have you
Or,
encountered this week? Yeah.
yeah, what are we countering today? Or, I don't know. And then they think that they will pass the test, any English test, and they're perfect. It pisses me off.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, it helps the test, but you have to use it in the right context. But if your goal is to communicate with people, I'd say B2, solid B2 level is a good enough level.
Yeah.
I don't mean B2 level where you have lots of holes in grammar, vocabulary, phrasal verbs, and all of that, because that will let you down.
True.
But you
True.
don't need to be sophisticated
No,
words
nothing
or
sophisticated. Nothing like, oh my God, oh my God. I have seen teachers promoting like, excuse my French. They're actually promoting it. Like, you have to say, excuse my French. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, why are you even promoting that? Like, you have to use this. This is native speakers' phrase. Anyway,
again, marketing. You know, that's why I started hating social media. I mean, I think it's great for some reasons, but for this, that people use this marketing techniques to attract followers, to gain popularity, oh, it gets on my nerves. And those posts are really popular. And
it's
the
about
amount of
money.
students that actually pay attention to them and do learn
Mm.
from them and don't question them.
They don't question them. They
Yeah,
don't
I feel
question. You know
sorry. I
why?
feel
Because
sorry
they
for
they
them.
look they look great. They look great in the camera. They look great, and they're perfect before the camera. They do it really well. They've got great marketing strategy. They got a whole team behind them. They got everything but
We should
English
work on our
knowledge.
strategy. We should look better on camera,
I have
Ali.
no I have
Really.
no strategy. I just bought a microphone, by the way. I bought a microphone, a wireless one, 2 weeks ago, so I'm pretty happy about that. That's all the investment I put into this whole business thing.
Fantastic. Well, you don't know what's going to come out of it, you know. But so you pinned the comment that was earlier here that a native doesn't have to prove themselves.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. What do you think about that? Natives don't have to prove themselves.
It is true. It is true. You said you call me a native speaker, but I still feel like, you know, even though I'm native level, I grew up in the UK in a bilingual family. I still feel like an outsider a lot of the times. I question my English a lot of the time. So I always feel like I have to prove myself, not to always other people, but to myself. So I feel that pain. I feel that pain to an extent.
Especially when it comes to
Um,
writing, I think a lot of my native speaker friends, they question themselves when it comes to writing a formal email or essay. Everybody questions themselves when it comes to writing. What do you think about that in terms of writing formally or writing a review, writing a proposal?
Writing is
That's a
hard.
very, yeah, it's
Writing
very hard.
is a difficult skill. You have professional writers. It depends on the content that you're writing for. But, you know, to get an essay right, you have to write many times. I mean, everyone would be a writer and writing books otherwise if writing was an easy task, right? But
Exactly.
or be a blogger or whatever. No, it takes a lot of practice and work, and it's not a natural skill or comes naturally to people. You have to work at it even as a native speaker. Absolutely. It's true. Native speakers are not bothered about mistakes. It's true. The amount of times they hear, you know, they make a mistake. Oh, what's that word? Right, right. They're not afraid of that. What's that word? So this is where fluency comes in. If you can't remember a word, describe it with other words. Set the context for it. Say this thing that you use to open or to unscrew this or something like that, right? And they're not afraid to do that. They don't panic. So that's fluency. That's a good aspect of fluency. Absolutely. Don't panic if you don't know the words. It's not the end of the world. Also, you know, the pronunciation part that I was watching a dating show the other day, and these two guys went on a date, and one of them was saying something, and then he kind of stopped it with blah, 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 like that. Let's start again. So he couldn't say something properly because, you know, we are humans. It's natural for our tongues to get twisted or our jaws to get blocked, you know. We are human. It's not a native versus non-native. And you're right, non-natives panic when they can't say something properly or when they make a mistake.
Because they're
Non-native don't.
overconfident.
Natives do
Because they're overconfident. They think that they possess that
not.
language. And regardless of the mistakes they make, they're always going to be labeled as the native English speaker. And because of the
Right.
media and because of all the false power that students have given to these native speakers, they feel that they can actually brag about it and feel super overconfident. And whatever mistakes they make, nobody's going to care about it. But that's another aspect. I know you didn't address that.
But
I wanted to
I
say
had
that we
two
have to be
native teachers correct me and point out one wasn't even a mistake and the second one was a slip of the tongue mistake. And they pointed out that she made this mistake because she's not a native in my video. And in the other one, I was promoting my pronunciation course, and he went, "Oh, you said something incorrectly earlier," when he joined my live. And I rewound back and listened, and I didn't make a mistake. But the fact that they felt the need, this supremacy, this arrogance to point out what I did wrong, it does, I think that's where the accuracy thing can be limiting and make you feel like you're not good enough or you're not fluent enough.
Yeah.
It is a fault of native speakers as well, I think.
Yeah.
For
I'm
doing
telling you,
that.
I woke up this morning at 6 a.m. with a message from this Australian teacher, British Australian, who told me all that stuff and told me like my English is terrible and there are many
He
errors
actually
in
said
what I
that to
say.
me. Are you
Yeah,
serious?
she said that you have this error, that error, but I didn't want to publicly say it. So why are you calling it? Why are you lashing out on people's errors? Everybody can make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. And I was like, all right, my English may be terrible, but I don't teach incorrect stuff. When I make a
Yeah,
post, I make sure that what I'm teaching is right. My English may be wrong. I might have a lot of problems, but
you don't. Honestly, you
why
don't.
do you think that you're in a position to, literally roast people just because you were born and raised in a country that you didn't even decide to be in, and you're speaking a language that you didn't even decide to speak in, and now you're bragging about what you were given at birth? This is quite unfair. I didn't tell her this because I didn't want to get into talk. I just thanked her and respectfully left the conversation. But
No,
I,
you're
I've been,
strong.
but Maria, I've been subjected to discrimination all my life, especially the past 13 years I've been traveling. Everybody has been telling me like, yeah, you're not a native English speaker. Your English is terrible. You suck at it. And but you know what I'm
Has it
talking
pushed
about.
you? Has it pushed you to improve, or were you
Oh
already
yeah.
speaking as good as you do now, or have you actually worked even harder on your English because people made those
I've always been
comments?
like that. No, I've always been like that. I've always been talking like my knowledge has probably improved a bit, but I've always been like that. And at the same time, being subjected to discrimination. It never pushed me to work harder. I never started studying more just because I was subjected to discrimination. I wanted to study and work harder on my English because I
It
love
was
the language.
internal motivation,
Yeah,
intrinsic motivation.
I wanted to learn this language. That was a whole different story. But back to my point, being a native English speaker is not a privilege. I started this page because of that. It cannot be a privilege. It could be a personal privilege, but schools, students should not base their judgment on that. They have to base the judgment on the fact that this teacher can teach me the language right, can teach me how to
Sure.
speak it accurately, and all
Yeah,
the
and
rest of the
explain the
stuff. That
rules
yeah.
and guide me and all of that. Absolutely. So that's from the teacher's perspective. But what about the learner's perspective? Do you think non-natives, for example, when they move to a new country, do they have to make more of an effort than local natives? Do they have to make more of an effort with their English, do you think? I
I
think
would say,
so.
yeah,
I personally
non-natives would
do.
have to, yeah, they would have to make a bit more effort. Is that the answer to your question? I would say, my experience, when I was last in the US, my experience was that I had to make a bit more effort. But the funny thing was that when I was at this school teaching in upstate New York, all my colleagues were like, ah, you're a non-native English speaker, but your English sounds just right. And I'm like, yeah, because
Is that how
non-native
I came
English.
up with the slogan for your Instagram?
Yeah, yeah, probably that's how it came up with this whole thing because he was like, just right. But then I was like, but in this world these days, everybody speaks a perfect English. Everybody has access to genuine resources. So it's not about being a native English speaker only to
Have,
be able to
having
teach it.
access to info doesn't mean you can process it and make it your
Tell me what you think.
knowledge, actually. Well, actually, some of our discrimination. So my thoughts are, it makes sense. You can get angry about it, right? You can try to re-educate the world, but also it's a simple matter of, as an outsider in anything, you always have to work harder to fit in. And insiders can break the rules, right? For example, with work, when you just join as an intern or as an bottom level employee, entry level, you have to really follow the rules to the T,
Sure.
right? But the senior employers or those who have been there for a long time can get away with some things,
Sure.
right? They can break the rules. So I have a feeling, do you feel that that kind of, I think so. It also applies to English. So as a non-native, you kind of have to play more by the rules than as a native in order to fit in, to prove yourself, if you want to, of course, if that's your
Not
goal.
not in the university where I work. My British colleagues, my
Okay,
Canadian colleagues, they have to be extremely careful with accuracy when they're at work because they know that they're
okay,
being judged by the students. So at the university level, no, especially when we have like grammar and language courses or when we're preparing students for Cambridge tests. No, being a native speaker doesn't mean that you can get away with whatever mistake you make. Probably at a language
okay.
school level, in my experience, you may have made a valid point. Yeah, they could get away with it because students are under the impression that being they are native speakers, so they can make mistakes or whatever. Let's just turn a blind eye to it. Did that answer a question, or I didn't?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got
but
it
I think
right.
it's
Yeah,
helpful to learners instead of complaining or saying, "Oh, natives make mistakes, so that we will too. We'll not bother to learn the rules." You have to learn the rules before you break them. Before you break rules the native way, you have to learn the rules how
true,
they are.
true. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I like that. Could you come up with an example, like because I'm really interested in that because I've got one example. I want to hear yours too, and then we could.
Oh, no, nothing off the top of my head. Let me think about it. It might come to me. It might come to me. But missing articles, for example, shortening sentences, stuff like that, right?
Sure.
Not having subject, verb, and all of that. It just
Or another typical one, like everybody knows that, back to the main point we just talked about, everybody knows that we have to say there are 20 cars here. But native speakers know that, knowing that, they still say there's 20 cars here in spoken English. So they make that mistake, but it's a valid mistake, as valid as it is mentioned in Cambridge Dictionary. So making mistakes when you're a native speaker means that you have already studied everything. You are aware of that, and you're still making that. I mean, go to Wyoming, go to Mississippi, go to Nebraska. There's a lot of people living on farms speaking such a different type of English. You can like, oh my God, this is
But
only
do you
grammar
want to be
books.
a farmer? That's the thing,
But
right?
but
When
that
people
belongs
compare
that
themselves to
belongs to
their
the
native speakers,
category. That
yeah,
belongs to
yeah,
the
yeah,
category, and they're totally legit and right. They're right. They have to speak their own language. And then again, my students are going to be like, teacher, Americans say this, so you cannot tell me it's wrong. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't like the
it
example of
depends.
thanks
Where do
God.
you want to fit in, right? Where do you want to fit in? Where do you
Exactly.
see yourself? In the academic world, in on the farm in Nebraska, as you said, where do you
Yeah.
want to fit in? That's the question.
The
Who do you
problem is
want to
that they're mostly
communicate with?
engineers. They're mostly engineers who want to end up working as an engineer in New York City. And they pick
Oh,
they pick the language of a farmer, and they expect you
from a
to
farm
say,
in Nebraska.
yeah.
Oh my
This is
gosh.
what I'm talking about. This is the deep problem that we have. I'm talking about, but nobody listens to me. You know.
I'm sure a lot of people listen to it, Ali. I'm sure. I'm sure. More than you think. More than you think. Let's spread knowledge and positivity. Absolutely. I was thinking also of, I sometimes do this, the past simple and present perfect. So I know in American English, it's okay to say, I just finished this, I just did this,
Yeah,
right?
they don't have
So
much
by
of present
definition,
perfect.
using just,
Yeah,
yeah, it's not as necessary. It's not always as essential to use it. But in British, it's I have just finished this.
yeah, yeah.
So that mistake, but again, in American English, it's acceptable. It's not seen as a mistake, right?
Sure.
As far as I know. And I sometimes start speaking and I go, I have finished a project or I have finished a video because I want to focus on the result that it's finished now. And then
True.
I
Yeah.
suddenly switch to, when did I finish it? Last night, right? So I combine suddenly,
Past simple,
and I
present
know
perfect.
it's wrong. I know it's wrong, but like, okay, so now looking back, I should have said, I finished it last night because I'm focusing on the past, not now. But it's hard to get that sometimes, in speaking, and it's not the end of the world. But as long as you sort of try, when you want to highlight a point, grammar can be helpful. But that's where
But that doesn't
accuracy
cause
is
any
not.
confusion. That doesn't cause much of a
That's
confusion.
true.
Yeah, what's
That's true.
important for example, for Cambridge exams, what we have to focus on as Cambridge teachers is that we have to prepare students for the test, but at the same time, they have to be able to communicate effectively in an uh, in any kind of contexts, not necessarily among friends, they have to be able to communicate effectively. So what is communicating effectively? It means using present perfect, past simple, past perfect continuous, future perfect, future simple accordingly to eventually make sense, to eventually make sense. To eventually make
Yes,
sense. I always tell them, if you make sense, you're good. You're off to a very, very good start.
I have
And
lived here since 5 years ago. Yeah, I was thinking about that. The last time we saw each other was 2 years ago, and we haven't seen each other 40 years. So that's another common mistake, right?
sure,
Um,
that's
that one is
notorious.
difficult to really as you speak, and it's as long as you have the fundamental understanding of those rules. Sometimes you might have a slip up because you might change your mind halfway through as to what you're saying, as I did, the example that I gave. But I think as long as you have the fundamental understanding of those tenses, I had a student today and I went grammar. As soon as I said the word grammar, she went, no, but I just want to practice speaking. I was like, okay, but do you want to speak correctly, or you don't mind making mistakes? You don't mind that you don't always sound correct? She said, no, I want to sound correct. I want to speak correctly. So I always say that tenses and grammar are helpful to add color to your language and to make sure it's clear what it is that
Absolutely,
you are communicating. It becomes more precise and the story becomes more natural and interesting and engaging and makes more sense, right? There's
absolutely,
less room for interpretation and miscommunication. So again, accuracy helps fluency in that case.
absolutely. Especially, I always tell my students like present perfect, the present perfect tense. If you do not use it accurately, it creates a whole lot of confusion in your talk. You might even lose a job because you're not using present perfect tense correctly. So go get a teacher and learn it right. Learn it just right. Learn how to use it. No, no, definitely.
Yeah, because you want to say I have finished the project, or or you say you have finished something, but you're not finished, or I've been working on something, right? Or I have worked on something. What are you trying to communicate? Yeah, make sure your boss understands if you finished or haven't
That's
finished, and
that's
how
why
long.
I always tell my students you need professional assistance. And they confuse the word professional. They think professional means with someone who's perfect. No, with someone whose job is teaching English. I'm going to repeat that again. Not with anyone who is probably running McDonald's in New York City and speaks English as the first language. No, someone whose profession is teaching English. I repeat it over and over again. They have to be able to teach you accuracy. Period. End of story. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think it takes real humbleness and real modesty to accept corrections as well.
There you
I
go.
always can tell when an arrogant student comes to my class and I know it's not going to work. You cannot learn being arrogant. You have to be humble and accept that you're not perfect. You have to accept corrections and not take it as an insult, right? It's not an insult to your intelligence or to your
Nothing
personality.
personal,
I'm not
yeah.
saying that you are stupid or oh my God, it's not personal. It's just honing those skills, something new that you're learning. And it takes real courage, I think, to accept your mistakes and to hear that you're making mistakes and to try to learn from them. So I think that mindset is important, and not everyone has it. So perhaps that's why many people like this message of, oh, fluency over accuracy, forget accuracy, because they don't want to be corrected, because they feel good speaking. They want to keep feeling good. And then they feel bad if they get corrected. Again, maybe they feel like they hit on the head back to that comparison every time they speak.
That's
And you can imagine that now in your lessons when you correct someone. Oh my God.
I was telling my colleague the other day that I can literally teach English to a chair. I think after 17 years, I can teach English to a chair. You put a chair in here, I can teach the chair the present perfect tense in 20 minutes because literally after a while, we all become like actors and actresses. Seriously, seriously, like actors and actresses, you just get in there and you constantly tell them like, hey, you have to do this way, you have to do that way, and then you expect to see a performance. If you do not see the right performance, you could even actually make up with performance.
It's a big
I
drama club,
know.
isn't it? It's
Yeah, you can
tough.
make up
It's
different
tough.
types of performances depending on, if it's a chair, if it's a person. But you are absolutely right. I mean, we have to see if the student is up for it, if they're actually up for learning the accurate English. And I would say 30% of my clients are not really up for it. They don't want it. They're like, yeah, we just want to learn how to talk. And I'm like,
30%.
okay,
Is
yeah.
that
Yeah, I would say
okay? So it's
30%
not a big
in my
it's not a
experience.
high percentage. And
Yeah,
how do you deal with them? Do you just sort of let them communicate and
exactly.
what's the
Yeah. But
and you
when
never
the community,
correct them. You never
yeah,
give them corrections.
I never give them feedback. They don't want feedback. It's actually perfect. I actually give them a very good discount. I give them a 5% discount on that because if I do not have to give feedback and prepare materials, I love that lesson. Just show up and leave. Literally, just talk to them.
It must be
And
so hard because in your head you must be like da, 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 like saying these
uh,
corrections. Or do you manage to switch off and switch the teacher off? Because that's the thing, right? When you speak to a native, they don't correct you. They're not thinking about your mistakes. They just focus
because
on
they don't realize
communication.
it.
Is that
They don't realize it. They don't realize it.
I realize, but they're not bothered. Like they're not teachers. They're not gonna be focusing on that. They're not
I had a
focusing on
classmate, Maria, let me tell you a story. I had a classmate back in Sweden when I was studying in 2010. He was British. The name was Mark. Everybody had English grammar
British.
questions. They would go to him and they would say, Mark, is this correct? And Mark would say, yeah, it's correct. Is that correct? Yeah, that's also correct. Can I say this? Yeah, you can also say that. You can also say this. You can also say that. And then I was like, no. And then Mark was, what's wrong with that? Everything is right. We can say anything we want. They all make sense. And I'm like, it's because you are 22 years old and you've learned this language from your parents at school and you don't even realize the differences. Appreciate the damn differences. These people are asking you for accuracy. If you're not familiar with accuracy, don't tell them. Again, back to the point. Sorry, we get off topic
As
sometimes.
you can't give what you don't know. You can't teach what you don't know. If he hasn't made an effort to analyze his own language,
There you go.
then I remember studying French with other English speakers, right, at school, and they said, oh, we actually started to understand English grammar and English structures through by learning a foreign language because they didn't have that appreciation before.
That is
So
also, yeah, that's pretty common too. Yeah, learning for like
I don't know why, it must have been laughing at these students who were going to this native expecting him to know everything and not to you, someone who can teach them,
I,
grammar and explain things and say what's right and wrong and why, right? Not laughing, but you must have been like, wow, frustrated
Maria,
perhaps even, right?
do you know who shattered this image? I remember when I was working in Turkey, I used to work with Kenny from Scotland, a native English speaker who had a master's degree in teaching. Every time he would go to lesson, he would have a big ass dictionary. I'm not kidding, to look up every single word. And you know what he told me? He said, I am a true native English speaker who knows nothing about English. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is actually right.
With masters
Because
in
you need
teaching,
a dictionary. No,
seriously.
you need a dictionary to look up every single word. Just because it's your first language doesn't mean that you can just get into class and start telling people what you believe in. You always have to double check your information. You always have to
Yeah.
check if what you're saying. There was this one teacher who didn't know the phrase relative pronouns. And I was like, you don't know what relative pronouns are generally, and you're claiming to be teaching English. At least go double check things. You don't have to be. I don't know. We can rant about it for hours.
Oh, the
Nothing's gonna
concept.
change.
I'm not a fan of learning the names of grammar rules. I'm more about the concepts of grammar. But if
You've
you don't
got your
understand
grammar
the
course,
concept of
but
it,
yeah, yeah, but
yeah. But I mean, I do double check the names and stuff. But I never said you must remember what the word gerund, because learners don't need to know the word gerund. They need to know
definitely not.
ing. So I usually say verb ing. So I focus on that instead because that's what they need, not knowing all this
Not the big names,
um,
no.
funky
But
names. Yeah.
the talk that I had with this gentleman was that I was trying to explain to him to prepare the materials for the lesson. And then I told him, like, go ahead, prepare the materials for relative pronouns. He didn't even bother to Google what relative pronouns were. Like, he had no
Oh, I
idea
see. So
what was
he
talking
had time
about.
to prepare. He had time to
Yeah, you know what
prepare,
I
and he
mean?
didn't
Go
bother.
prepare the thing for
That's
the
different.
students. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about remembering all these big names because it gets boring and it gets useless with all these big names because eventually, at the end of the day, we're
Yeah,
supposed to be able to teach the stuff to the students. So
yeah. They don't need to teach the mechanics because the mechanics, unless they
definitely
want
not.
to become teachers as well, it's not necessary, but the actual way of speaking, the construction that they need
That's
to
another
remember, that's
criticism I
different.
have against certain teachers because I see that some teachers go ahead and brag about knowing all these fancy terms. And I'm like, you don't need all those fancy terms. A teacher is supposed to be a teacher. Get in, do
Thank
the
you.
job, get out. Get in, do the job, get out.
That
That's
sounds
it.
like something else, Ali. Maybe because
No,
it's
but I'm talking
Friday.
about teaching. I'm talking about teaching, really. Get in, teach the stuff, find the easiest and fastest way to teach that, the fastest way. You
Yeah,
don't need all these fancy terms. Do the job,
agree.
make sure that they understand what you're saying, and leave. That's it.
Yeah, I was put in a pronunciation course, the Vowels, so it's nearly there. If anyone's interested, it's on sale. Just a quick sale there. It's very
Maria has
cheap
a
now, honestly.
pronunciation course, everyone. Maybe you can type it in there so I can.
For Vowels for now, I don't know if I can share the link here directly. So it's still being put together, finalizing, but if you get it today, it's only €3, super cheap.
How
Two and
many
a half
hours of the
hours worth
course?
of teaching.
How many hours is it?
2.5 hours, but it's going to be added on. I try not to be wishy-washy, or I've edited the hell out of it to make sure it's concise. And I was really thinking hard about how not to use all this glottal, all these fancy terms, right? Because I don't want to sound smart. I don't want to sound intelligent and confuse learners with all these fancy terms. Frontal and mids and back vowels. I'm like, like I don't think these students need to know that.
No, they
They
don't.
need something simple that they can relate to and some vocabulary that they can actually use as well as they're learning how to position, their lips or their tongue, or their jaw. I was really thinking hard about that, and I saw so many teachers using those fancy terms, and I think it does give sort of an impression of superiority and makes them look like they know what they're talking about, which I'm sure they do, but I don't think it's necessary. I think true teaching comes to, it's demonstrated if you can dumb down the subject, really dumb it down. That shows that you truly understand it and you truly understand that how the learner learns, right? So, and you understand what they need. They don't need the fancy terms about,
Sure.
sounds,
Definitely not. No, no. It's all about,
categorizations.
yeah. Everybody out there, so make sure to check out Maria's course as well. It's on sale and it's on your bio. They can find it there
Yeah, they
on your
can find
page
my
in the
bio,
bio.
send me a DM, and I'll happily direct
Mhm.
you. But yes, I'm finishing it up. Of course, you have access, and as I'm adding things, it'll keep being added. But 2.5 hours are already there, so plenty to get through. So, the long vowels versus short vowels. I worked on minimal pairs because um, it's one thing to learn vowels in isolation, but it's quite another to learn them in contrast and to
Right.
understand how the difference between the two. It is British pronunciation. I did try my best to add elements of American pronunciation and to contrast that to like fox versus fox in American. Um, Basically, I did highlight that, but yeah, it's more for the British pronunciation lovers, not for the American.
So it's British, everyone. It's British. If you're up for British,
British.
make sure
You
to
want to
check
speak
that out.
British in it.
All right.
Fantastic.
Will I be able to
Wow.
pronounce words like Adele after the third session? No, I mean you're not going to be able to pronounce words like Adele. All right, Maria. Anything else you want to add before we take off?
Yeah, sure. Just the other thing, the shadowing was the question
Yeah,
earlier
shadowing.
that
Yeah.
we posed. So I did that. I did shadowing because I moved late childhood. It was for me. So I still had to put in the effort to hone my pronunciation skills, my accent, and all of that. I remember working using shadowing technique. I remember working on it. I remember working and isolating the sounds and really trying to copy the way people that I liked, the way they were speaking, how they were speaking. However, I made a video about this. My latest reel is, just a bit of a fun video. When you try to imitate the whole thing, it can be difficult sometimes because the individual sounds can be tricky. So shadowing, I think, works wonders for intonation, tone, maybe some linking sounds, like when they link together. But individual, for example, vowels or some rules for why we suddenly have this sound here. If you can actually sit for and analyze that yourself, that's fine. So I think it works to an extent, and it depends how musical you are, perhaps, how good you are at picking that up. That's my point of view. What do you think, Ale? What's your take on this?
Um, I don't know much about shadow. I know how it works and everything, and I know that these sounds are difficult to shadow for certain students. But honestly, I cannot really comment so technically on that right now at this time of the night.
It's
I don't want to
imitation. So
comment on that. Yeah.
it's listening to someone speak and then trying to imitate that. So
True.
say they say something, something, you
Which I
pause it
became
and you
familiar
try
with
to
on Instagram. I became familiar with this whole the term shadowing on Instagram. And out there, we were
yeah.
never trained for that specific shadowing thing. We're always trained for that whole idea of listening and repeating. There was never a term for that. Anyway, I think it works, and a lot of my students record my lessons, and they say, "Oh, teacher, I'm going to go ahead and shadow you." And I'm like, it helps, but why would you have to shadow me? I mean, you could shadow a podcaster, you could shadow, I don't know, somebody who
Well,
was in movies, somebody more
but
professional,
they
somebody
chose
more
you as a model. They like the way you speak. They like the way you sound.
true, but they have to go ahead for accuracy, not just the way somebody speaks or somebody talks, somebody interacts with people. That's why I've got
That's
this
true.
thing. I don't want to get deep down there, but I've got like,
Okay.
we don't have to copy one individual, you know. If we're going to copy
Mm.
one individual, then like if I copy Barack Obama the whole time, I'm going to sound like Barack Obama after a while, and then what? You
You're
know what
gonna
I
be
mean?
his copy, yeah?
Because I've
His
seen some
double.
students, copying people from South, like the Southern accent, and they talk like this. Oh, it's silly in my range. I shot the bastard. They think that they're talking the Southern accent, and it doesn't match the character because you are
That's
from the
a good
Middle East
point.
and you're speaking Southern accents.
That's a good point. Pick someone that resonates with you, that feels
That's
natural.
for
Do
me.
not try to twist yourself into something that you're not, right? So,
There you go.
but maybe people relate to you and they like how you sound and they feel like you represent how they want to sound. So that's
How they
possibly
want to
why.
sound, not because they know what's good for them, just because they think that they have to sound like that. And then when their English gets better, this is the very slight criticism, it's very subtle. When their English becomes really, really good, they feel like, oh my God, what a huge mistake I made from the very beginning. I was supposed to speak in natural English, not copy Ali, because Ali speaks like a,
Yeah,
for example,
don't
rapper.
obsess.
Yeah, they get
That's
obsessed. They get
true.
obsessed. That's why I've seen students being obsessed. In my experience, I've also seen students who are not obsessed, but I've seen some of them get obsessed with the way, for example, I don't know, George Clooney talks, and they want to sound exactly like George Clooney, and they're like, "Oh, what?"
Be yourself. Be yourself. The balance is key, right? You need pronunciation, grammar, you need fluency, like natural communication. A bit of everything is
A
phrasal
bit of
verbs, maybe
everything.
some slang. You need to find the balance. And the balance depends on what you go with as well, right? What are you looking to achieve at the end of the day?
What are we looking for? Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All
So
right, so you have to go.
let's
Just one last thing. The bottle of water. Someone asked me to. Amin asked me to pronounce. The bottle
bawa
of water is
bawa.
Bada Wada. It's the American. What's the
It's on
water?
TikTok. It's everywhere
I
on
think.
TikTok. Have you seen that guy? The guy is saying bawa bawa, and everybody thinks British people pronounce it as bawa.
Well, some do. And I would say bottle of water. That would be my. I'll just say water. Give me some
Uh,
water. Water. Water.
all right, Maria.
Natural English,
Great.
not Obama English. Well, that's the thing. Obama's English is natural to him. We're not saying he doesn't speak naturally. He speaks naturally to the way he speaks, to his personality, to his background, education, what he wanted to achieve, in
That's what we
life.
call natural.
Obviously.
That's what we call natural. Yeah. That's what we've been
Absolutely.
talking about it all along. Va bene.
Great. All right. Va
Thank you
bene.
again, Maria. Thank you for sharing your views on this live with us. And
It's been amazing. Thank you for
yeah,
having me, inviting me. It's impromptu, sort of impromptu ish.
sort of. Yeah, sort of.
It's so good to see you again. And, we seem to share the values. And I love that. I love seeing teachers sharing, because I think they're good values. I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm sure there are things we can learn and
We're
improve.
definitely not. Yeah,
But fundamentally, having, our clear conscience and being ethical, at the end of the day, caring about our learners, putting our learners first, not our ego, not our marketing, not our sales, right? And I think that's what makes the teacher ethical, putting your learners first. What works
absolutely.
for them, what helps them.
No, I just want
Cool.
to sleep well. At the end of the day, I want to sleep with clear conscience. I want to sleep happily ever after, thinking that I've done my job right and my clients are happy. I think that's probably like the biggest takeaway of every teacher's, preaching about their job. Thank you again, Maria, and hope to see you again.
Yeah, for sure. Good night, guys. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Make sure to check out Maria's course, the pronunciation course. Thank you, Fatima. Thank you, everyone, who joined. And if you are into British accents specifically, you have to check out Maria's course. And if there are any questions that you want to ask, anything you have on your mind that you want to share, go ahead and comment under this IGTV. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Amin. I appreciate criticism. I get a lot of criticism, and I love that. But it doesn't stop me. That's not going to stop me, neither me nor you guys. You always have to raise awareness. Learning just right, and cheers.